Well, the government has decided to remove the export duties that were imposed on steel and allied steel products. The imposition was done in the month of May, and the decision to remove these duties with effect from the 19th of November has come in over the weekend from the government. Joining us now to explain the rationale behind the timing of this move and discuss other matters related to the steel sector is the Steel Minister, Jyotiraditya Scindia. Mr. Scindia, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Let me start by asking you about the rationale behind the timing. It is no secret that the industry has been asking for a removal for months now. Negotiations have been on between industry, the finance ministry and the steel ministry on when and how to do away with these export duties. What prompted the decision as far as the timing is concerned, Mr. Scindia?
Well, if we, first of all, let me just qualify your question by saying when you said that for months now, let's not forget that the imposition of this export duty has only been in place for months now. So we started on the 2nd of May, basically month of June onwards. So it's imposed only for a period of 5 months. So it's not as if this export duty has been in place for years and the discussions have been going on for months for the removal. The whole span has been from the 22nd of May to the 19th of November, which by itself is a period of just about a little over 5 months. Having said that, when I took over in mid-July, I had started the discussions with both the advisory committees that I had set up. One is the Integrated Steel Plants Advisory Committee, and the other is the Secondary Steel Industry Advisory Committee, which both comprise of the production areas in the steel industry. And it's only after many iterations of discussions and very long deliberations that we arrived at the conclusion that we are in favor of lifting these export duties. Please do understand that just like civil aviation, the steel sector also goes through a seasonality in terms of demand requirement. So we were in the month of July in the monsoon season, which is the most sort of lull period for demand for the steel sector, understandably, because construction and everything else comes to a halt. And therefore, through that period of iterations and deliberations, we took a conscious decision with all hands on deck, the steel industry, government, whether it's the steel ministry or the coal ministry, the finance ministry, that we would watch how the steel prices react when demand starts taking off in the festive season. And once we have some sort of confidence level that steel prices are not again going to go on a northward trend, then we will certainly evaluate this. That's point number one. Point number two, we were also tracking raw material prices, because as you're aware, iron ore and coking coal form almost about 60 to 70% of the production cost for the steel majors as well as for the secondary steel sector. And those commodity prices, after reaching a peak, had started falling tremendously. And we were apprehensive that maybe those prices also, as international forecasters had put in place, may start rising again. So there would be multiple pressures on the steel industry with regard to pricing. And so we were dynamically monitoring that. And I had committed to the steel industry that we will take a view one way or the other in the month of November. And in the month of November, through our multiple deliberations with the Coal and Mines Ministry, with the Home Ministry, with the Commerce and Industry Ministry, and finally with the Finance Ministry, we took that view that the time has come now that we need to remove this export duty. Both, let me emphasize, with regard to the steel industry and the steel sector with respect to the 9 HSN codes, but also in terms of the raw materials, which is iron ore greater than Fe content of 58, less than Fe content of 58, as well as pellets. So the move has been across the board vertical integration from raw material to finished product, where in the case of iron ore, it has been removed completely in the area of less than 58. Greater than 58,
Right.
it's been reduced from 50% to 30%. Pellets have been removed completely. And the 9 HSN codes for steel products, the 15% export duty has been removed completely.
Yeah, you talked about how there have been deliberations on interministerial deliberations as well as deliberations with industry, and finally the government deciding to take this call in the month of November. Mr. Scindia, I want to understand from you, in your conversations with industry, what is the feedback in terms of inventory build-up, inventory pile-up, and now destocking on account of the export duties being reversed? What is it that industry has left on your table by way of feedback? Because it's also a globally challenging environment that the steel industry is currently faced with. If I were to take a look at the numbers, Nomura has put out a report on how exports are down 66% between April 22 to about October 22, and in fact at the lowest monthly level of exports since May of 2016. So it is a challenging environment. What did industry place on your table by way of feedback?
So if you look at the international environment, in which I include India, at this point of time, the commodity cycle peaked about 2.5 months ago. And since then, whether it's coking coal or iron ore, prices have fallen off with regard to raw materials ranging between 30% to almost 55% in terms of value. Coking coal has come off from $600 to almost $300. So raw material prices have come off exponentially. On the other hand, steel pricing is governed by two factors. One is the raw material input costs into steel making, and the second is based on demand pull and therefore impacting supply push. Now, internationally, demand pull has contracted tremendously for multifarious reasons, which you must have elaborated many times during your show for all commodities worldwide. The fact that many economies are quote unquote near recessionary trends, the fact that infrastructure spend in many international economies has actually fallen, the fact that China has also not been able to ramp up demand. But conversely, the situation is very different in India. If anything has kept the steel sector going as far as India is concerned, with a capacity of almost 150 million tons per annum and a production of almost 121 million tons per annum, it's actually the domestic demand driven by Prime Minister's huge push on infrastructure. The fact that public spending on infrastructure is close to about 10 lakh crores this year. The fact that there is a very robust demand cycle, which after decades has hit almost about 10.6% in terms of increase in demand for steel. And therefore, the domestic demand, what is shoring up steel industry to a great extent. As far as the export market is concerned, understandably that those export numbers are going to be falling exponentially from May till October because of the export duty. But I do believe that 15% of India's production prior in 21-22 was exported internationally. Our companies, both ISPs as well as some SSIs, have got a foothold in international geographies, from Europe to the Middle East to Southeast Asia. And I believe that this step will allow them to again gain that or maintain that foothold in those international markets. It takes a lot of time to seed those customers, and it's very important for us strategically in India to be able to retain those international customers as well. So I think that even though dividends may not come immediately, because there is huge pricing pressure internationally as well, if I take the example of power, fortunately the steel sector in India has a committed base load of demand of almost 80-90% of steel production from domestic sources. And the balance 10-15%, the top up or the cream, if you may say, is only one that is targeted to the export sector, which I believe in time our companies will again regain in the days to come.
Yes, we'll have to see how much of that is reclaimed and how soon and quickly it is reclaimed. But Mr. Scindia, I want to address the issue of the PLI scheme because you
We
spoke about it this morning, saying that 70 plus applications have come in for the specialty steel PLI scheme. But given the situation at this point in time, when do you anticipate that we are actually going to see investments taking off? Because demand visibility will also be crucial in terms of capacity addition.
So therefore, to your somewhat, if I may be positive, your realistic note, let me not call it a pessimistic note, but to your realistic note, let me say this, that we have got a firm commitment for capacity addition of 26 million tons per annum through the tenure of the PLI scheme, close to about 46,000 crores in terms of investment. Almost creation of 69,700 odd direct jobs, applications, 79 applications from 35 companies, of which 62 applications have been approved. So therefore, it's very, very heartening feedback for the specialty steel sector, which will in many ways be value additive from a product point of view for the steel sector. So we are very positive and very hopeful. We see that capacity coming on stream in chunks as we proceed over the next couple of years.
Okay. Let me address the other PLI scheme that also falls under your purview, and that is the drone PLI scheme, which was also rolled out after consultations with you and the Finance Ministry. Can you give us an update on where things currently stand as far as the drone PLI scheme is concerned, Mr. Scindia?
We've seen a tremendous amount of interest in that as well. The turnover of those companies from a very small number of roughly 60 crores odd has grown to almost close to a 200, 250 crore turnover number. The PLI output out of the PLI scheme has also been dispersed to a degree of almost about 40-50%. And that is a sector which is really undergoing exponential growth. In fact, as we speak, I have coordinated with close to about 14 parallel ministries and government of India in terms of requesting them, urging them to increase their activities through drones. A lot of the ministries have used very innovative processes. And a similar exercise I have done with the 36 states and union territories, where we have mapped out best practices, best industry practices, and exchange best practices between states so as to bring them on board in terms of various applications for drones. So it's a very wholesome approach to the drone policy, where we are acting as a facilitator and a collaborator between the center and state governments, pushing demand through both state governments and central government, as well as in the retail side through sectors like agriculture and others.
All right, Mr. Scindia, we leave it there. Appreciate you joining us today to take us through both these decisions, the decision to remove the export duty on steel, as well as reimpose the import duty on some products like coking coal, as well as give us a status check of the PLI schemes that you are currently tasked with taking forward. Always a pleasure. Appreciate your time. That's the Minister for Steel, Jyotiraditya Scindia, taking us through the government's decision to do away with the export duty imposed on steel and steel products on the 22nd of May.